Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
In today's educational environment, students and teachers are juggling a mix of face-to-face, online and blended learning courses. Canvas by Instructure helps teachers navigate these diverse learning experiences with a user-friendly virtual learning environment that offers flexible access to courses and a consistent learning experience, all while streamlining everyday teaching processes. The world's best schools and universities are using Canvas to create dynamic courses, collaborate seamlessly, and access actionable data that drives student success.
Are you looking for lesson planning materials to kickstart the new term? We've got you covered. The Day is a global online resource that turns the news into lessons. We're offering listeners a free resource on Andrew Tate that you can find on thedaynews.co/Tate. Inspire personal development and critical thinking for your students by downloading the Tate Debate today and feel more confident addressing sensitive topics with your class. Visit thedaynews.co/Tate to find out more.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
Good evening, EduFolk, and welcome to Education Tonight. As every week, Brent will be joining us in a moment alongside Adam, who I believe is fighting his way back from a parents' evening, but he will be joining us as well. I think this evening's chat is going to centre around robots, and are they going to support children coming back to school, those who maybe are struggling with their attendance. So that'll be an interesting chat this evening. But whilst we're waiting for everyone to join in, I must remind you of our delightful sponsor, EDAPT, who are not your typical trade union, but a modern apolitical alternative. They are independent and they specialise solely in supporting teachers. Should you ever need them, you'll be assigned a professional caseworker. I mean, hopefully you never do need them, but they are there indeed if you do. There's also 24/7 mental health support, and they're just there for hopefully, never needing them, but things happen. Anyway, if you want to know more about them, you can go to edapt.org.uk. I can see that Mr. Brent Poland is in and raring to go. I'm sure full of energy as always. Good evening to you, sir. How are you?
I like the way you describe me. I am a little bit of a jack in the box, aren't I? Yeah. I'm knackered, but I still have enough energy to do an hour and a half show. So even on my reserve sort of battery, I'm still going. I hit the ceiling on the pole.
I don't know how you need to share your secrets. It's a bit like people's skincare regimes. What is the secret to high energy, Brent? Tell us all.
Well, I think actually I'm waiting for the diagnosis, but I think I've got ADHD that's been undiagnosed.
Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I think, my wife's a clinical psychologist, and I sort of hit upon the idea a couple of weeks ago to go, look, love, I gotta put this out here. Do you think I've got, ADHD? And it's like, really? Say that a couple of my colleagues, and they're like, let's see, deadlines, arbitrary. Like taking instructions, arbitrary. High energy, arbitrary. But I look at all, and I did one of those tests, and I tick down it and go, oh dear God, I've got practically everyone per timekeeping.
Yeah.
I've got the classic sort of. But somebody said to me, he says, "Well, why would you want to get a diagnosis?" Or something. I said, "Well, to be honest with you, I'd like to understand. I'd like to understand why I have a brain that goes 110% to the dozen. But then other times I go into hibernation mode and I could sleep for a couple of days. It's strange. I find myself at times sort of really, really, really sort of high energetic, and then other times it's just like finding my motivation's difficult. So it's like everything with.
Yeah, I hear you. It all checks out, and certainly, I mean, I was also diagnosed as an adult, and I think people go one of two ways with it. They go either kind of look back on all the sort of maybe missed opportunities when they were younger, or they really roll with it and they're like, oh, okay, this all checks out. And I kind of went that way with it. But
It's your superpower now.
yeah, I mean, yeah, well, exactly. But anyway, so this evening, Brent, tell us that we've got some robot chat.
We do. There's a couple of really good stories that I want to have a look at about, and I want to try, as always, tie a couple of threads together about the positivity around involving technology in classrooms, and a couple of news stories coming out of America, Japan, and even the UK, where robots have been used to reduce anxiety in the classroom and get kids back into the classroom, which I think is a bit of an irony, because I think one of the reasons why a lot of children are anxious and having a lot of fears in the world is because of the use of a lot of technology. So there's a bit of a technology,
Possibly.
yeah, technology solving
Yeah,
technology.
we touched on this on Weekly Review. I think you were there for that one, so it's going to be good to expand on that, I
I think
think.
so. And then there's another side of it, which I think I want to have a look at the negative side of it. And this is where my sort of spidey senses are tingling when I look at recruitment and retention. Why are they not so keen to resolve the recruitment and retention issue? And I don't like this feeling, and I know the historians among us would probably see where I'm going to go with this, and maybe I might be a bit of a luddite. But are we on the verge of being potentially replaced? I mean, are we a generation away from the fact that teaching will not be the same profession, and that we will be
Well,
assisted by
in,
a robot, or replaced by a robot? It's assisted or replaced.
interestingly, so this formed a large part of tooting my own horn here, a large part of my show on Tuesday, where I had this exact discussion, and Nihad actually said that he thinks that teachers are the ones that will be able to stick it out. Our role will just be a little bit different. He thinks it's the doctors and lawyers that are going to kind of go bye bye first. I mean, just that's a take. I mean, I would like to think that we still have a job. I mean, I don't know.
But isn't that the thing? Are they there to assist us, or are they there to replace us? I mean, and I'd hope that they're to assist us, because I do think. I mean, I spent last weekend at a conference, and a major political party, and they were the first to bring in an AI policy. And the basic gist of it is that we need to make sure that this is not going to be used to do people out of jobs or destroy parts of society, i.e., not be going to be manipulated in order for nefarious, cost cutting exercises, in order to basically to turn the bottom line. And I don't like the way our education system is heading towards monetization, data, cost cutting, and trying to do things on the cheap, because for me, a good member of staff is worth a lot of money, because the things that they do just cannot be quantified. And I think that's our unique selling point, which then brings us back to what we want to be doing at Teachers Talk Radio, is saying we need to make ourselves, as teachers, indispensable. We need to make sure our practice is good and is irreplaceable by something like an AI. So it's kind of, what is our unique selling point as educators? It cannot be doing data. It cannot be doing the menial stuff. It's got to be, sitting down with a child and reaching out human to human and complementing
For
ourselves.
sure.
Yeah. And I think that's our unique selling point. And I think, what we need to do is, as a profession, is not sort of get bogged down too much into the day-to-day stuff, and actually hone our professional skills, that we still retain, I think, the pastoral side of things. I think the relationship is so important.
For
um
sure. But do you think, Brent, that there's maybe a danger there that, and I'm just devil's advocating here, that, I mean, our role is already hugely pastoral, whether you're primary or secondary. And I know you talk about the many hats that we wear, and I
mm.
use that analogy as well. But do you worry that maybe, it will almost become entirely pastoral, that our role won't necessarily be academic as such in terms of sort of teaching and learning? It'll be more just so children don't miss out on that nurturing element, that social element, because I know during COVID, what we learned, I mean, we knew this for many children already, but school is, for some children, their safe space.
Yes, I mean, we end up facilitating and coaching then, rather than actually being the educator, in the sense that the educator then is the AI or the computer program. I mean, my daughter tonight, I was starting to read. It's amazing when you have your child read back to you something that you used to read to them. It's a glorious moment when you think, I used to read that to you, now you're reading it to me, and then spelling out the phonics. But you turn around and she said, there's this app, and I won't mention it obviously, but there was she wanted me to direct me towards this app, which then would track her reading, and it sort of made me think, oh gosh, could be a really good thing, or equally, this could be dangerous. But at the same time, it's getting me to interact with her. But a child being read their book by their parent is something that is very, very, very important, and something that was done for me. I always remember my parents reading to me the bedtime story or the Celtic myths and legends. And in that aspect, an app doesn't change that. An app shouldn't change that. That parent to child reading and then the child reading back. Phonetics has helped. I have to say, the primary school are absolutely phenomenal. The way how quickly they can get kids to read. I'm in absolute awe of how quickly within the first couple of years, the amount of progress that primary school makes. And I think secondary school could probably learn a bit more, because one of the problems I always find with secondary school is I don't see the kids that often. I see them maybe once a week, and I'm trying to teach them history once a week. I think the way we do secondary school needs to change, and the way that we're losing a lot of learning. It's not efficient. I find secondary school just very inefficient. Whereas when I've taught kids 2 or 3 subjects the way you guys do in primary school, I found that I've ended up sort of getting more progress and building a better relationship with those children and getting to know them a bit more and building a better relationship. And I think that's maybe where we have to move to as well, of just how we organize our schools, how we organize our curriculum. Because I don't think we build upon good relationships. We've got far too many teachers teaching far too many children, and they're not really getting into any great detail or even building those positive relationships that you certainly get at primary school, or equally when you have this positive relationship with your own child when you're reading a bedtime story to them. Because in essence, it's like my football coach was one of my greatest teachers. He actually was a teacher, but I think of what my football coach used to teach me. He taught me a lot more than just football. I remember once the way I used to walk, and he was like, "Why are you walking like that?" And he would like put your feet in like that, or we'd be taught life lessons. And I think there's good teachers out there in society. I mean, that's the thing. And I don't think we sometimes tap into that in schools. And robots can't replace my old football coach. A robot can't replace some of my best teachers, and certainly a robot can't replace me, you know talking to my child and reading with my child. And that what worried me about that app. And I thought, I wonder how many other people just go, here's the app, rather than a child to a parent. So technology should be there for to be used for us and by us, but not replace us, if that makes sense. Because that's a robot. That's sci-fi, isn't it? Oh my word, we're getting into sci-fi. But I see, Adam, you have arrived. It's our
Hello,
parents'
hello.
evening.
How are we doing? My survival pack was a tube of Pringles, a coffee latte, and a couple of bottles of water. Managed to kind of smash through it as quickly as possible. Quick blast down the A38, and here I am. So good evening, everyone. Hope you're okay.
Good, good.
Just getting set up, kind of blasting in. So I heard you started talking about the AI robots in schools.
Yes, so Lucy and I had a good chat. Her Tuesday night show had a really good couple of features on this as well. So if you want to listen back to that, I did have a quick look at it myself. I thought it was a bit of a crossover
Well,
line,
it
but
was
not too
inspired
much.
by you, Brent. It was your quote for sort of education to suit themselves, and it kind of grew out of that. So it's kind of your fault, that show.
Was my quote? What was my quote again? Oh, that everybody wants education to
It,
suit themselves, wasn't it?
yeah, and I know it was kind of linked to sort of other things as well, but it also, I think, is one of those sort of sound bites that has a kind of that you could take in many directions, which I did, because yeah, that's well, as I think you're going to kind of delve into this evening, sort of, is it are we kind of entering into that situation where children can kind of build their own curriculum, they can do it from home, and we are all going to get sent out to pasture.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a bit of a theme in the last couple of weeks, because we've been looking at some of the private schools who've just basically said bye bye GCSEs, and they basically, sorry, not for us. So there's an element of already you're seeing more parents homeschooling their children, and they're saying bye bye, current curriculum, and I think with the technology that is available, with the amount of ex teachers out there as well, I think there's a lot of freelancing going on. There's a lot of private tutoring happening. And it's quite interesting. You could basically take a child out of mainstream education and probably have enough people around with enough skills that they could probably do a decent job of teaching. That goes back to what I'm saying about, if we're not careful, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are just basically saying, well, why am I sending a child to a school and all the school's doing is telling my child to sit down and wear the uniform correctly and curtail their their freedom. I almost hit upon the idea our schools have become industrial, but in a post-industrialist world. And I think there's a definite massive disconnect when everything keeps saying about how children learn best, and yet our schools are asked to put so many kids into a classroom, and the only way it seems that you can actually teach large numbers of children is to revert back to more traditional type of front-facing desks. I had the quandary of, do I turn my desks around sideways and go for group work type desks? But then I realized I'm not the only teacher that uses my classroom, and I was receiving complaints from other people saying the behavior was difficult when the children weren't facing front. And I thought, oh my gosh, are we behaviorists? Am I back to behaviorism? Am I now, children can only concentrate if they're front facing? There's too many. You see what I mean? We are almost we're almost regressing, is what I'm suggesting in school, and yet society is moving in one direction, and talking about AI and talking about robots being used, and yet there's parts of the UK where I think our education system is stagnating and almost ignoring all of the evidence and just going, this is the best way to crowd control, this is the best way to do behavior, this is the best way to keep control over what's going on, this is the best way, and you're seeing all the evidence of what's happening to kids with SEND. And that means there are a lot of children out there who just are not feeling that they want to be in school because the way school is organized, the way school unfortunately has to be organized because of budget cuts, lack of teachers, class sizes, is everything's leading us down into a regressive Victorian style education system, and yet we are living in a post-industrial, you know, super highwayed, knowledge-based economy where creativity is what we need to be giving our children, and yet we have a curriculum which is discriminating against creative subjects. I find everything so disconnected, and yet I'm going to do a story here about how we could use AI, and the first thing I'd say is, well, look if you can get the AI to work in some of our schools, because how good is the internet access in some schools as well. So there's a lot happening, and it needs a kind of top down vision. And I would love to see technology incorporated a lot more in the school, but with the caveat that the technology is there to assist. That's my thing. The technology has to be there to assist, not to replace. It has to be there to complement, not as a gimmick. And I think too often you see technology coming in, much like you see it's all a really good post tonight, and somebody was going through all the different theories in the last 20 years, VAK, 3-part lessons, brain gym. There's a lot of fads in education that come in, and is technology, is it the latest fad? Just like in the 1980s, we thought Japan would be ruling the world by 2010. Remember all those movies? Just like we think that China's going to be ruling the world in 2050. It doesn't always work out. It doesn't always work out that we think the way it's going to work out. So, Tomorrow's World was one of my favorite programs growing up, and I always used to tune into Tomorrow's World. And it's funny when you watch some of those episodes back, you see the old clip of something Tomorrow's World got right, and then you sometimes then see something Tomorrow's World did not get right. But sometimes they absolutely nailed it. Same as sci-fi movies from the 80s or 90s. When you talk about AI, and we're talking about, oh my gosh, is the Terminator real? Are we going to have Skynet soon? And there are some visionaries out there, and some educationists out there who can see the future and can see how we can incorporate AI into the classroom to make it even better. However, are those the guys in charge of educational policy? Are they the ones going to be listened to? Are they going to be too late before we turn around and the government says, well, okay, we could save a lot of money by getting rid of teachers, but not realizing that getting rid of teachers actually, that as much as we might be a pain for them, because we're not exactly as easy to control as maybe an AI. Oh, well, actually,
Yeah,
there could be there could
Brent,
be a
who
hypothetical.
got a hand up from Lucy if she wants to
Yeah,
just jump in?
sorry, I'm doing that thing under Lucy. Doing that thing. Go on, interrupt me.
One thing I don't know. I don't know what it was. No, I was just going to say that when I heard the phrase brain gym, I'm sure I'm not the only one who had mild palpitations. I feel like it's it's one of those things that's almost become a dirty word, or dirty two words. But just the idea of, because I also asked the question the other day of, is AI just going to be another one of these fads that we go through, like brain gym, all the other things which we can't, if we go down that rabbit hole, we'll be here all night. But it's I don't think it is. I think
No,
that we
I don't think so. I think it's going to be so integrated into everything that we do That
Yeah.
it can't just be a school thing, it can't just be a teacher thing. We're going to have the next generation coming up using it regularly, so therefore schools have got to adapt and include it somehow. It's got to be part of it. It's not going to sit separately to the private lives of people. It's going to be so integrated into their lifestyle in everything they do. So therefore, schools got to kind of the education system has got to incorporate it somehow.
We've already got an AI lead. I mean, this is a new thing this year. So there's actually one in Key Stage 2, and there's one because we have Key Stage 3 on site at the moment on the primary site. And so their job is to kind of keep up, I guess, and,
Yeah.
and keep us all informed. But I'm also dying to know, how much CPD we're all going to get on this, because of course, yes, I went there. Oh gosh, I went there. But yeah, I mean, we're going to
Yeah.
need help with this.
Well, as someone with that title in my school, I was a
You
bit.
are the AI lead.
Well. That's what sits on. That's what sits on one of my job roles at the minute. We're trying to kind of work out kind of how we do it in school in terms of CPD, because we've got, as always, we've got that bell curve of the early adopters that are already flying, and we've got some people who don't even know what it is and it's never hit their, somehow it's not even hit their radar, and they don't really care about it. So we've got that kind of big gap across the school staff, and it's not necessarily age. There's some people older than me in their late 40s, 50s, who have picked it up really early, and it's some of the younger staff that haven't kind of even kind of picked up on it at all. So it's not kind of
To back
across
you
that.
up, we got a new suite of computers, which got rid
Woo!
of our 14-year-old
Look at
computers.
you.
And they're streamlined and they're freestanding, so they're still like normal PCs, but they look really cool.
Yeah.
Of course, the kids have figured out how to pull the cables out, so we've had to tie the cables. And just as soon as you think new technology in, a couple of buttons have gone missing, the wireless mouses are losing their batteries, and you're like, oh, why can't we have nice things? Why can't we have nice things? So there we are, and I'm teaching my first ever computers lesson. I know, with a shortage of computers teachers. So last year was physics. This year I'm teaching year 7 computing. So I'm one lesson ahead, as you always are. First lesson, logging in, and the first thing I realised is that these children aren't used to using a keyboard. And there's me with the assumption of, come on, kids, you're the internet, you're the computer generation. They're all iPad, they're all touch. They don't know how to use the computer, and it gets even better. I'm at the stage where, like, could you write your login? Type in their logins, log into their software. Make sure they put their password, and they have a sticker with their password on it. Uppercase, lowercase, school address. There were 7 children sitting there, and I'm thinking, great, I can control their screens, which I think is Serco, it's called, or Senso it is. It's fantastic. I can control their screen, hijack their screen, make their screen go red, put a message up. And I'm like, why is the 7 screens missing? And I was looking around. There were 7 computers, and the children were looking at the computer, trying to figure out how to put how to switch it off. They didn't to go around 7 children and push a little button to show them how to actually put the computer on. And I was like, do these kids not realize that? And then I realized they don't have PCs.
Or they
And there
do,
is
or they do. But like my laptop here, I've sat down tonight, and it's face recognition, isn't it?
correct.
Yeah.
And there's
So,
there's
so
me going, oh wow.
they're like a different kind of. They're doing something different again, aren't they?
Exactly, but there's us going, oh God, we've got new computers in the computer room.
Yeah.
We're getting there, and 7 of the kids are already further ahead because the technology they use at home is already better and advanced than it used to be at school. I remember when I was a child that the first time I saw a computer was at school, and it was a BBC, and
Mm.
there was one computer in the whole school which was a BBC, and it was Run Doc Go. I remember playing this game called I think it was the Curse of Sherwood Forest, and it was like groundbreaking. I was looking at images on a computer. But you went to school, and if you got anywhere near the computer, the one piece of technology, it was like it blew your mind. It was like something out of an 80s sci-fi movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, our schools are so far behind because
That's right. Yeah.
I remember I
I
remember
worked. Yeah. I mean, before I was a teacher, I worked for it was Egg Credit Card Bank, and at the time they were the first bank to be fully integrated online. And I'm dealing with these kind of complicated kind of networks and systems every day, and then I decided to leave that and go into teaching. I was absolutely shocked that they were still running kind of split networks with 5 or 6 computers linked to it. Then you have another log on for another set of computers, and nothing was integrated, nothing was interlinked. I remember coming home thinking, this is just really bizarre, isn't it? That I've come from one place, and where the people will go to, where children will go to work, is so far advanced of the place that we're teaching them. But I do think kind of well, we call it AI at the minute. I'm not sure how much artificial intelligence is going on. There's like different models. For example, the kind of the Bard and the kind of the language generators that probably most people are using now, and a lot of systems been set up around these kind of language network models. It's not really that AI, as we know as AI. Is that they're feeding from a data set on the free versions that probably was set back in kind of 2021, 2022. So that it's not artificial intelligence like we know artificial intelligence or what it will be. But I think there's a definite growth um, in that, and children like my children, they're a bit older now, so they've started to use things like Snapchat, and those sorts of things are built into those services now. So they don't even know they're using them. And I think a lot of people don't know they're using these kind of systems. Like they're so used to kind of using predicted text on their WhatsApp messages, they don't even say, "Oh, that's this" anymore. It's just predicted text, isn't it? So
And
it's
that, and that's
it's
become so
integrated.
integrated. Yeah, people have
It's
just got
integrated
so
in
used to
so
that.
much.
Yeah.
Like going back to why this school in Warwickshire is doing what it's doing. It's kind of trying to fill a kind of vacuum or a void, isn't it? And trying to kind of put something in there to bring these children back into school who are doing and talking and developing relationships differently than we ever thought we would. Um, we're starting a series of lessons at the minute. I always quite like this lesson. So we're doing those kind of like the needs and wants type lesson. And I tell the pupils, I'm 40, 42, nearly 43. My life is literally split in half. Half of my life, no internet, no mobile phone. Second half of my life, this full on, technology kind of burst, this exponential kind of growth in things. And you know, when we were doing this lesson as students, we'd never have mobile phone or technology as a need. And although they wouldn't necessarily select it as a need, they use the language. If you try and take a mobile phone off a child in a school, or if I try and take the mobile phone off my children now here, they will use the language, I need my phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're already kind of built into, what I mean? They're sort of integrated anyway, even though they can kind of move away from it. They
So
are.
what you're really saying is that there's no going back on this. This is the
Well,
direction
I
of
don't
travel.
think so. I mean, progress kind of, is a juggernaut sometimes, isn't it? It does kind of just move, doesn't it? But that
And it has growing pains. It
It has great.
produces a new set of issues.
I think what's happening at the minute is that because there isn't any, and I'll talk to you in a minute about what you kind of went through at the weekend with the AI policy, is because there's no kind of leadership on this, like proper leadership in terms of leading a kind of conversation and a debate. So as we talked before about bringing different stakeholders from different kind of parties in, that what's happening is that there's lots of people just kind of having a go at different things. Like there's lots of, for example, there's loads of products out there, but that you can spend like £5, £6 a month on that can convert your YouTube clips into a choice question workbook, or a tool that can change the reading age of the text and give you some questions from it. There's lots of these tools about at the minute. But there isn't any kind of overall kind of leadership in terms of what do we want this thing to do, and where do we want it to go. And it seems such a shame that there isn't that big thought over this. and this cathedral thinking. I think, right, we know this is the direction. So what is it we want from it as a society? What is it we want it? What do we want from it from our children? Rather than kind of this kind of putting a toe in the water here and seeing where it goes, and just almost trying to learn. We're running with it before we know how to walk, don't we? With any of it,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, going into that Warwickshire story, that just go through the Warwickshire story, just in case anybody listening doesn't know. So this is something actually quite before COVID, and something embedded. So children across Warwickshire are who are unable to attend school have been able to participate in lessons thanks to the use of robots. So a trial of the AV1 robots began just before the pandemic, with 7 robots purchased by Warwickshire County Council. Due to their success across schools in Warwickshire, they're now loaning or investing in their own distance learning avatars, which make it possible for children and young people who cannot attend school due to sickness or physical or mental health challenges to take part at school via an app or on their phone or their tablet. So in practice, the AV1 robot is an app-linked device fitted with a camera, a speaker, a microphone that opens a two-way audio and one-way visual channel between the student and their classmates, allowing them to learn alongside their peers and maintain social contact with their friends, without obliging them to appear on camera themselves. So the robots are carried from lesson to lesson by a classmate. Some children in primary schools have even taken the robot into the playground or to lunch so the classmates can be involved in all elements of the school day. So that's not a true AI, that is a robot avatar being used as a surrogate and used as but the fact that this is being almost an avatar is the best way to describe it, a robot avatar which represents the child who can't be in school. That's a massive positive, because that's allowing that child to be in school. It's allowing the other children to interact with that child. And I suppose this is as close as you can get to be a child being in school, because that was one of our problems that we saw during the likes of the COVID crisis, that we're all trying to do teams, and you're looking at a blank screen. It's like, hello there, hi there, kids, and you knew there was nobody there. This is a bit different. And they're going to roll this out even further. So that's been a massive success. And you think of Harlem Council, they invested in this, and they can see the success in this, because one of our problems is getting kids back into school. So that's been a successful trial in Warwickshire, not of a true AI, but having a robot in a classroom. The kids have embraced it, the kids are running with it, and that seems to be embedded. And we've got Lucy with a hand up. Hello, Lucy.
I'm not being funny. What happened to just having class pets? Because I get the getting kids back into school with that AI, but I miss the days where, I mean, I know a lot of schools have school dogs now, which I think is great, but I was in charge at primary school of the African land snails. That was my class pet, and I loved them.
They're
At
massive.
primary school, they're massive. So I was in charge of putting cucumber and lettuce in their tank, and then they had babies, and so there were lots of snails. But just kind of.
Was that primary school, Lucy?
This was at primary school,
Yeah,
yeah.
my kids had a class just recently.
Was there a biology lesson where they were making the snail babies?
Not that we saw.
Yeah. Both my children had like that at primary school just recently, and they're both left primary school, and they've gone through the primary. So I guess the question is why doesn't secondary schools?
Yeah, or hatching chicks or things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that again, we're moving on with technical things, but what happened to all this kind of wholesome stuff? We're just not allowed to do it anymore. Is the health and safety lost the plot again?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more to do with what we've been talking about in the past. It's just maybe there hasn't been that teacher who's been able to stay at a school long enough to kind of have their own room to kind of set it all up.
Yeah,
Maybe,
true.
that's
Certainly
what
in secondary.
because I remember this secondary school teacher who had been in a room for like 20 years, and they've got their own house plants in, and they've got their own things on the wall, and they've kind of bedded in for life, haven't they? They've kind of made
Well,
the
also
classroom a home from home.
they have, but also just on the plants thing. I mean, I don't know if this is just trying to keep kids out of trouble, give them jobs. I had 2 kids turn up my door today. I think they were year 6s, being like, "Do you have any plants we can water?" I thought they were joking. I don't know if they've been kind of sent on a mission to keep them out of trouble, or whether this is a new kind of year 6 job that they're just trying to give everyone a job to make them feel, like they're part of something. I don't know, because I mean, the house captains collect house points and all that jazz. Although I didn't put mine up today, I was very naughty. But yeah, when they came around offering to water plants, I was like, do I need to tell your teacher that you're doing this, or is this something that they've condoned? I'm not quite sure. But
Did
yeah.
anyone
We
come
we
around
have
looking for
classes of
tartan
plants.
paint?
Yeah, yeah. Chin is
Say
starting
again.
to, yeah.
No, I was just saying, did anyone then come knocking for tartan paint or?
Left-handed
No,
screwdriver.
no, honestly, I think sometimes, but I think there are those teachers who do send kids on random, those kids that need to go for a walk and they send a random poster that actually has nothing on it.
Oh, we can't do that any longer. We've got the Department of the Environment road building scheme, which is in high vis vests. Oh, high vis vests! Don't start me on people with whistles, high vis vests, and two-way radios. Oh my word, what is
Right.
going
No, no, no.
on?
Separate rant for another day. Stay
Yeah,
on
Separate
topic.
rant for another day. Yes.
so,
Well,
so,
yes,
so
but I agree. I mean, actually, going back to your point, Lucy, a lot of schools have adopted the therapy dog, which I think is an
Yeah.
absolute stonking idea. A therapy dog, and a therapy cat.
You've got to make sure they're
Um,
hypoallergenic though. So you've got to have things like doodles and poodles and things because there are a lot of kids who are allergic to fluff and fur and things, which is a genuine thing. I'm not kind
it
of
is,
saying
yeah.
that. So you've got to have a hypoallergenic therapy dog.
And I know that in young offenders centres, that's one of the things that they tend to do as well, because it giving something. I saw a really good program in America that was trying to turn youth people around, and it was giving somebody a pet. Was they look after the pet, they bond with the pet, they realize that in looking after the pet that they're responsible for another being, and in fact it helps them sort of as a therapy, but also helps them understand responsibilities, and sort of it's the oxytocin, because I know that when people when people are sort of petting animals and stuff, it produces the chemical
Is
called
that the hug?
oxytocin.
That's the hug hormone, isn't it? The
It is
one
the
that
hug.
kind of.
The hug. It's the calming hormone.
That's the one.
It's the calming hormone. It's the de-stressing hormone, and of course the logic behind that is absolutely fantastic, because there's other ways to de-stress people. There's exercise, conversation. That's why the staff room is so important. You put people in the staff room, and I could go and talk to a robot, but there's nothing better than talking to one of my colleagues and asking them, "How's your day?" I think we get so much out of those human interactions, and literally the support you get from your colleagues. It does feel like sometimes you are in the trenches, and that that you have the gallows humor of life in the trenches. I do equate it, the teaching sometimes is like being a World War I, and it's a bit like Blackadder goes forth when you have the gallows humor of what class have you got. But this is the thing that makes our job so tolerable, is that sometimes you roll your eyes and go, "Who have you got now? Year 9, who's in your class?" And you go, "Oh." And it's those conversations. That's the thing we missed during the pandemic, wasn't it? When we couldn't socialize, we couldn't help each other, we were
No.
distant from each other. And it makes you realize that actually we're very like the children, that because you give the children the free time, they'll run around. Boys will, kick each other and throw footballs at each other. The girls will talk in corners, and you get the kids will find their niche. The kids will go into the computer room and turn their headphones on. Other kids will talk in corner. You just naturally see how children interact. I sometimes sit and watch the kids and think, am I looking at the Serengeti? There's the predators over there. There's the lions over there. There's the cheetahs over there. Oh, look, there's the wildebeest all in her. We are social animals. School is such a social place. And I love the idea. I've actually heard, we've got a school chaplain, a lay school chaplain, and she's part time with us because she does works in our primary schools, and she was introducing the idea of a school we called Therapy Dog, and I didn't go further than that. I really hoped that she would bring it in, because even I was sometimes wanting to go into that staff room, and if the therapy dog was there, I'd go over and take the therapy dog for a 5 minute walk around school. I even said that to parents today. I was doing a PHSE lesson today, and was talking about exercise and about the value of exercise, even just going for a walk and taking a walk for 20 minutes. And I sort of cribbed it with the kids, said, hands up whose parents just go and take the dog for a walk for 20 minutes because they want to get out of the house and they come back in a better mood. And you want to believe the amount of children who put their hands up, and it's plainly obvious that after a stressful day, some parents come home and they take their dog out for a walk, and it's not they're taking the dog for a walk; they're just basically finding a way to de-stress. And I think there is something absolutely right about a living creature. You can bond with a living creature. And I think what you've hit upon, what I have concern about, Lucy, is that people bonding with technology is not the same. This is Ed Machina. This is that type of thing of, I think, therefore I am. Human being to human being. But if people are going to bond with robots, there's something about that doesn't sit well with me. And maybe I don't like where we're heading as a society, that I think human beings to human beings is how we have been since our species has
Yeah.
evolved out of the cave.
Can
I
I
don't
just
like the fact,
interject there, though? I think that
yeah,
it's very difficult for us to see. We talked about this in class today, is that there's going to be children whose first access to education has been on the mobile phone because of COVID. And it's going to be very, very difficult for us to unpick that, unfortunately. I think it's going to take a monumental effort for them to detach from that. And I think you're right in what you're saying, and we can offer different solutions, but the solution will have to be with technology somehow. Because I think we had this conversation, we were talking about the banning of mobile phones.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes incredibly stressful for children to come off their mobile phones. And we can call that whatever we want. We can call it an addiction. We can call it
Dependency.
dependency,
Yes.
whatever. But it is a reality, and this is what's so frustrating about the leadership around it. We still haven't really got that internet bill properly done. There's no kind of leadership around the security on some of these websites. This is happening, and the policymakers have not been able to kind of come together and create a space where children can exist with this technology safely for both their mental and physical health. But
Yeah.
the only solution seems to be that we either have to, it's the full libertarian option of, well, it's free speech, and you can go and it's the Wild West. The other option is, let's just ban it. Well, actually, there's got to be an answer somewhere in the middle where young people are going to have access to this technology. They've been brought up with it. It's been part of their lives, rightly or wrongly. Us as parents have encouraged the use of this. The state then and the institutions have encouraged access to the online space and mobile phones and technology. And then we're kind of asking them to do the impossible and saying, right, now you've got to come away from it. When actually all they're seeing, or all they're referencing, is those kind of reward signals from it. And
And, and and therein lies the problem: is our children are getting far too much reward out of the technology,
yeah,
and they're not getting enough reward out of the relationships.
yeah,
I look at a lot of their friendships as so superficial. They're
yes,
not grounded on reciprocity. They are so superficial. They're so nasty. And even I noticed I was doing a lesson today, and it's anecdotal this, but this is where I'm going with this. We were talking about joining up and fighting in wars, and obviously the situation in Palestine came around, and I didn't want it to go that far because I was talking about World War I and men's motivation to join up and volunteer. Then they were conscripted, and is looking at the home front. Women going into the factories. And what I was trying to understand is that these young people were, did they understand what war really meant? That the total war meant that everybody in the country was working towards one goal, which was to win the war,
yeah,
and that there were sacrifices that Chilwell, and they did really good then to look at the 139 women who died in Chilwell when the depot in the barracks went up, and 139 women were killed, and all but 12 who were injured were back at work the next day. And you think, my God, aren't they resilient and stoic back in those days? And one of the girls just turned and says to me, would you fight for your country, sir? And I'm like, what do you mean, would I fight for my country? Of course I wouldn't fight for my country. I wouldn't fight for any. I wouldn't. I don't want to fight in wars. Thanks very much. And she was like, oh, I'd fight for my country. I says, well, congratulations, well done to you. But here's the other side of your equation. The other side of that equation is, would you die? Would you kill somebody else for your country? And instantly, straight away, her answer was absolutely yes. And half the class were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, is this normal? Are we in a different world, or how's the sort of desensitization of our children understanding what they're saying is, or they have maturity to understand what they're really saying to me is that they have no problem with killing another human being. And what made me think is that I sometimes sit down and look at cyberbullying and cyber safety. I look at sometimes some of the horrible things that these children say to each other online. And don't get me wrong, I went through school. I know what children say to each other face to face. But there is something about the removal of the brakes and the morality around the internet, social media, AI, and everything else that really disturbs me. And it's the lack of. First World War soldiers did not actually want to kill each other. The statistics show that many of them shot over each other's heads. Human beings, when they're faced with another person, will behave differently when they behave, at a distance. And this is a disconnect between how our children view the world, the technology, how they interact online. And we're seeing a lot of this depersonalization, desensitization, and yet I do worry that that is leading to a dependence on technology, which is removing the humanity from our children. This dependency on technology, because the thing about the technology is cold. It cannot replicate the human to human interaction. It cannot. And that's what really sort of at the back of my mind I'm thinking is there is a danger. There's something that is ringing in my ears saying this is very dangerous if we embrace this too much without the checks and balances. If we allow some, development of our society, we allow our children to be so ingrained into this decision making, where they are so dependent on the technology that they lose, I think, their soul. And that is where I really am worried about that. I really am and I can see a lot happening with that. So Lisa's got her hand up. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I'm inclined to agree that there is a huge desensitization when it comes to our children and what they're exposed to day, and it's unfortunately filtering down and becoming younger and younger. But in keeping with the theme, because this really interests me, and I'm just doing a bit of field research here in the background. Going back to the whole AI lead thing, because I know that Adam is already one and that we've got them in school, but surprisingly, so I stuck a poll on Teachers Talk Radio just on the feed. So if you're there, please vote and let me know. And the question was simple: does your school have an AI lead? And the options were yes, no, and a pardon what now? And surprisingly, only 7.7% of the votes have gone for yes, 84.6% for no, and 7.7% have no clue what we're talking about.
Yes, that sounds about right. That's the bell curve.
Yeah. But I'm actually surprised, given how much that this has all taken off, and the conversations that we're having in schools and on Teachers Talk Radio. This has come up a lot in recent times, and maybe there's more going on behind the scenes than we're aware of. But a lot of these issues with tech that we're talking about and the exposure to things this has been a theme for a while. I had a mildly hysterical parent come to me last year and say to me, you need to get all the parents together and tell us how to deal with this whole TikTok thing. And I was sitting there going, sorry? So, I mean, is this, and I'm sitting there going, is this my job? Is this not my job? I don't know, because this is obviously not happening on my watch. I'm not filming TikToks with my students. But it's, it's stuff that they're exposed to at home, certainly at a primary level. But of course, the problems attached to that come into school. So as much as it's going on kind of off our premises and off our time, all the issues are coming back to haunt us. And I think that we are very ill-equipped generally as teachers to deal with it, because it's ever changing, ever evolving, even with things like radicalization and all the stuff. I know Prevent have just done an update as well. So it's we're constantly kind of on the back foot. And I mean, I'm in approaching my mid-30s, but I feel old. I feel old in terms of no, I do, seriously.
I know. I know what you mean.
I feel old when I look at the top 40 and I realize I recognize absolutely nobody on it. That's when I was like, oh God, so this is what it's like. I have become my parents.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress.
But just going back, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like, a year ago, I didn't know anything about this. It was my in-laws that were working in the city, and he was just. I sat down. We just sat down there, around family do. And he was just saying, you used to teach computer science, didn't you? I said, yes. He said, well, what are you doing about AI and stuff? And I was like, what are you talking about? I had no idea what he was talking about. And he was talking about how his team kind of are using it on a kind of regular basis. So it's that thing about schools being in such a disconnect, to society. But computer science is just a classic example of, teaching the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong people. I showed him he's a team leader in the City of London. I showed him the curriculum for computer science. And he's like, "What on earth is this? This is about 20 years too late." You know what I mean?
Can I need to do I'll do our sponsor now. Just before I do, I'll just give an example. Sorry. Yeah, I'll get Lucy in a second. Um, I had children say to me, Mr. Poland, I loved your TikTok. And I'm like, what TikTok? I don't have TikTok. So apparently there is a TikTok out there with me that is so good that the kids actually think it's my own professional TikTok. And even when I says I don't have TikTok, I have no TikTok account. So what have you ever seen? Oh, it's got all your stuff on there, sir. Says I'm like, whoa, and I checked through all my filters as I've done the last Facebook, Twitter, all the rest of it. And that worries me. That really, really worries me. That loss of privacy. I know Tom had the situation a year ago where we had teachers being parodied and horrible TikTok videos made of us using the recordings that we did to the for the children during the COVID crisis. So this also worries me about the deep fake thing, about the how we can be attacked now, undermined, the lack of privacy, and this is happening a lot more. We are losing our own privacy because we're now public property, and equally, our digital footprint is out there to be sort of used and abused as well. So even when we try and embrace the technology and keep up with it ourselves and try and live in that digital world, being the digital native, we run the risk then of somebody then turning around and creating something out of our own footprint. We're getting suckered into it, whether we like it or whether we're not. As teachers, we can't just you're right, we cannot close our ears to this. We have to embrace it in a certain sense, which means getting dragged into this mire. And I wish sometimes, it's horrible to say uninvented, but I just think our life was simpler when apple was a fruit, a blackberry was a fruit, orange was a fruit, and all these things that they want to name after were fruits. I mean, and that's to me, and I'm not, maybe sound like a luddite, but I think, are we better off with some of this technology, or is it just creating more problems which need more solutions, which creates more problems? Which
Can I just say before Lucy comes in, sorry, but I think that's the difficult. I think you alluded to it right at the beginning of the show, is that I think teachers have a very important role in that day-to-day kind of human contact. And I do kind of worry about seeing some content online of teachers trying to do a TikTok or TikTok, whatever it's called, TikTok, I don't know. TikTok, whatever. Yeah. That's how tired I am now. I can't even say the words. But I think kind of there's a danger of, and I've done it in the past where I've thought, oh, wouldn't it be really cool if we could do this? In fact, when we did our masters together, one of my things was kind of, would it be possible? I was trying to do lockdown lessons before lockdown, and trying to think about, this is back in whenever it was, 2014.
14.
Yeah, is it possible to remove all of the teaching almost onto like a cloud-based system with my kind of master's dissertation? And actually, I kind of thought, what's the point of that? That does exist, and that's the thing. Like TikTok is a thing, and it's there for that generation to do. It's kind of not for us to do that.
Yeah.
We've got our own thing, and that can coexist. It can coexist, and sometimes I get really worried when I see we've done it in the past, and and we did it at my old school when we did this kind of like breaking up for the summer social media kind of and straight almost within 10 minutes there was like a parody video, and I was just thinking that was just such an obvious own goal, that we published this thing to the world, and then almost straight away there was like 5,000 comments just laughing at it, saying how stupid it was, because that's not our space. And I think that's where we've got to see this, that there's different spaces. Do you know what I mean? There's almost like different networks, or however way you want to think about it. There's these spaces where that generation are doing things and existing, and there's also this space, and I think they can all kind of interlink and interweave each other. But that's what we've got to try and solve, isn't it? How do we have mobile phones? How do we have social media? How do we have AI helping us? But also, how do we properly get behind and support what we're doing? And
You
you're
know
right.
something,
Yeah.
I'm feeling like Lucy said, to the point where I just want to sit kids down and I just want to teach them
Mm.
without any technology, without any distractions, without any mobile phones. I go back to Socrates. I go back to the Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount. I go back to the greatest teachers I had, my football coach. I go, you know what? Just put us back in a classroom with 30 children who just want to learn, and I want to teach them and make our lives just simpler.
Yeah,
It's just let me off the wheel. Let
yeah,
me off. I'm
but
scared as
it's
head. I want to.
yeah,
It's
but it has just gone that, and trying to force kids. This the school that we work closely together with. They went full on, white walls, no distraction, and all that business. And equally, I don't think that was very healthy either. Start to strip the phones off kids as they walk into school and all this business, and kind of have that kind of huge conflict all the time. Whereas,
Yeah, it's toxic.
whereas,
It's
whereas,
toxic. Yeah.
where I've watched my daughter this week, she really, really struggles with maths. Right, the teachers allowed her to get her phone out and take a picture of the board. She got that picture home. She doesn't really. She kind of went through like a little tutorial on prime numbers. She within kind of 10 minutes or so, then had kind of like done her own little video with silly voices on doing the prime numbers, and that's the way she's going to learn.
But I know the thing is, Adam, your child is a child that comes home to a parent who has the cultural capital. That's the problem.
Yeah, but
Lucy's had her hand up.
she's also a child that's not going to sit in a classroom and face forward
No, no.
for an hour. So that is going to be a forever conflict because she wants to take a chunk bit of information and go and do something creative with that information to help her understand it. Do you know what
So
I mean?
I'm gonna
Yeah,
go to
sorry.
our sponsor, Adapt, which was my point that I lost myself a couple minutes ago about the fact of the matter is that we as teachers are sometimes under attack and sometimes we are undermined, and the work as a trade union rep, which I am, is becoming even more challenging in this digital world. And one of the organizations out there to help is our sponsor, which is Adapt. And they, of course, like us, believe that teaching is a rewarding profession. However, it is coming with its fair share of challenges, big challenges, and that's where they can come in. They market themselves on as a typical trade union, but an apolitical alternative, offering expert legal and employment and mental health support, and I underline mental health support as well because that's something that we teachers need in a very stressful job they are, and it could be good to talk to somebody at an organisation like ADAPT as well. They provide teachers and school staff with case services and edu legal support in individual employment disputes and allegations. And again, underline allegations because there's a lot more of that these days, isn't it? Without grounds as well, I may add. They're independent and their team supports with subscriptions individually with integrity, consistency, confidentiality, and as I say, they're a bit like a union, but they're different. They give advice on allegations, disciplinaries, grievances, suspensions, employment contracts, pay, working hours, sick pay, maternity, paternity, and leave as well. And more importantly, they are available 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. It was fantastic that they are available within the Friday as well, because that's when there's busy time for a union rep because things build up during the week. And they aim to get you back to you within 2 hours. They only use qualified professional caseworkers who are experts in education, and you can find them at adapt.org.uk. And we have redemption codes as well, which Lucy will tell us at the end of this space as well.
They were only for September, sadly, so not
Oh,
anymore.
oh.
But
Well, they are still very good value as well because look,
yeah,
I'm a union rep for another union, and I think everybody should be either with Adapt or in a union, especially in this day and age. And I've worked hard in my school to make sure that everybody is protected, and I've always had a policy of even if somebody's not in a union, not even in my union, that I would always afford them that protection and that advice, which is something I think is very important. Supporting people in our job is really what's always is needed, and this is an extra layer of support that should you want it, they're there. It's called Adapt. So that's our point. You see your hand up.
it was, and I had so many things, and now I've had a brain fart. That's so unhelpful. No, it was going back to what were we talking about? Kids, mobile phones, learning, and actually listening to Adam and listening to how his daughter is handling learning. I think there is, and I've sort of touched on this earlier in the week as well when I was talking about the future of classroom teaching. I do think, and I know, Brent, that that you have your this idea of that we're all going to go back to our kind of traditional classrooms, and going to have those 30 smiling faces at us. I
Those
do
halcyon days.
I do think that we're going to be sort of moving away from that. It's not going to happen overnight, but there are alternatives popping up all the time. There's one that exists out here. It's got hubs out here and hubs around the world where it's aimed at secondary, but kids build their curriculum. They can go to the hubs, they can be online, they've got tutors, they sit their exams like anybody else, and they do go off to universities, and it does happen. But I also think, our curriculum, I mean, there's no such thing as a sort of British curriculum, but if I'm going to kind of take the English curriculum, as the example of this, you go through it, you look at it, and I confess, I stand there in my classroom on a semi-regular basis, and I'm like, really? We're still peddling this crap in some cases. And I do think some teachers have the mentality, and certainly going back to the TikTok thing as well, as if you can't beat them, join them. And I'm not saying that everybody should have to do that, but we do need to be supported and have the professional development that comes with the ever-changing world that we're living in. And of course, I also think teacher training needs to adapt as well, because, and I rant about this on a semi-regular basis as well, that teacher training, by and large, I do not think is fit for purpose. And the focus is far too much on, all my sessions were on kind of subjects. Nothing was really about the nitty-gritty of what is happening in the
They're
world today
always
and how to
obsessed with
handle
your
it.
subject knowledge, aren't they? They're
Yeah.
always
And it
and yet you get to teaching and you end up in two different subjects anyway.
Well, that's it. And if your brains are like yours and mine, I mean, the tangents that we go off on. And I discovered today, I mean, I kind of went with it, but one of the girls in my class today, we were reading, we've got a new book that we started in English, The Ice Palace. And she was asking what every other word meant, and some of them I knew she didn't know, but she discovered that I kind of would sort of give a nice explanation, not just kind of dictionary definition. And so she got on quite quickly that if she asked, I'd tell her, and then it kind of dawned on me that this can't be every other word. We're going to be here the whole time. So they're not daft, as we know. But I mean, we talk about this a lot, that there is massive overhaul needed in so many areas of education, but curriculum, we are sending kids into a world that is not going to be even the same as the one that we entered post school, post university. And so the fact that we're still peddling the stuff that, even I would say a large part of it, I mean, I often joke about the fact I didn't know what a fronted adverbial was till I was 26 years old, and by then I had master's degree, and was partway through a teaching qualification, and had
I have no idea what you're talking about.
well, there you go. So
I
there
still
are
struggle with phonetics. I mean, you try to do
well,
phonetics with an Irish accent. Good luck trying to teach your English children phonetics with an Irish
that's
accent.
it. Well, that's it. And this kind of nonsense. I mean, the grammar that I end up teaching, I have to look up a lot of the time. I forgot halfway through a lesson the other day what a determiner is. I still can't remember.
Oh,
So I'm
God.
like, I don't, for crying out loud. But these are all kind of, all these sort of mini rants that we're going off on, all kind of feed into the same
But I
thing
suppose
at the end of the
you
day.
are right. I mean, there was no internet when I was in school, but yet we have to adapt to the world. The thing at the sort of, and it goes back to just a couple of the comments, and I think Tom's earlier comment was like you said, Lucy. I think Law might go first. Human relationship forming is crucial to good teaching. He's unconvinced
Mm.
that AI can ever play that part and the extent you would want. And I completely agree with that. I think our unique selling point, and one of the reasons why we are teachers, is because we have that ability to be flexible. I think we
We
use
do,
parts
but
of
I
our
do think,
brains that
yeah,
other professions can't even come close. There's something about unique about a good teacher that has the ability to do what we do, and I
well,
think our
sure,
profession is never given that credit, that we have a
no,
multifaceted, multi-personality, multidisciplinary, and very highly skilled. I mean, this is why many are leaving our profession to go into other jobs and realize that the
of course.
transferable skills we have are massive in
But I
comparison.
think also we still have to be mindful, because yes, we possess all these skills. We know that, and we are, we will champion each other until we're blue, purple in the face. But we also, I do think, have to be mindful of the fact that our profession, like every other and like the world, is changing, and there is a degree of, I mean, there is a degree of having to kind of keep up a little bit. And unfortunately, going forward, that becomes more important than ever. And sadly, I do think we'll see a lot of people, as we did in the wake of COVID, with the online teaching, just go, do you know what, I can't do this anymore. I was shoved into online teaching with no support, no
Mm.
input whatsoever, because that's just what we did. School was open one day and it wasn't the next. There was no time. But
But my caveat to that is, there's things that are eternal to teaching that can never be replaced, and all of a sudden you're going to get people going, the things that make us unique could be the things they lose. And
For
that
sure.
is, when you talk about data, you talk about measuring a teacher's ability when you're looking at value added and look at their exam results. That's crude, rude, and not very accurate for sometimes the things that a teacher does. There's that lovely statement from the American comedian, and it's fantastic. I always love that clip when the guy walks up and says, "How much do you make?" And he literally then rounds off like a 3 minute rant of, I make a child cry, I can make a child feel like, and he literally like just says all the things that we do, those small interactions, those amazing things that we do, the life changing. I know, been 20 years in the game, the amount of times I've had a person coming back to me as an adult, and who are now teaching their children, going, thanks for what you did like 10 years ago. And I'm like, no idea what I've done, but I have left, I've left a legacy, that it's like technology I don't think can ever come close to that. Human to human, it's like, I suppose, like the relationships you put, you connect with people when you're a teacher. You connect with these kids. You're part of their story. You're part of their life story. There'll be kids sitting in a pub somewhere, and they'll be saying, "Who'd you have at Miss Nuremberg? Who'd you have? Yeah, Mr. Spence. Who'd you have, Mr. Paul?" We in essence, we start to we have our own story as part of these children's lives. And I think it is part and parcel of the growing up. You go
I'm
to
sure
school, you
there are
have
many
teachers.
legends about you, Mr. Poland. Just, just
There are
quickly.
many things that I would like not to be repeated back of
I'm
what I was doing in my early
sure.
career. Like, but this is the
I'm
thing.
sure.
But you won't get that in a world where, like, would you go to school? Oh, I had a robot when I went to school. I
Well,
think there's just
Sorry,
something
can I
there
just, can I just
missing, isn't
interject?
it?
'Cause it was a funny
hello,
thing that
Adam.
happened to me. Sorry, I had to just. I'm back. One of the things that came out when the students were able to kind of start rating teachers online. I don't know if you ever saw that kind of
Or rate my
website.
teacher.com. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like,
Was
it's
it
all
the equivalent of rate my
2007.
poo? Yeah, you had rate my teacher.
But one of the things that really it still makes me laugh today is that there's just one comment under my name, and it just said he's overrated, but then 5 stars out of five. I don't know why it's always made me laugh saying he's
They
overrated.
did not understand the assignment.
Yeah, I thought that's brilliant. That's just absolutely spot on to yeah, maybe I'm overrated, but you're still going to give it in the end anyway.
Just
Fantastic.
quickly, friends,
Yeah.
Le Prof, who is on actually a little bit later, I believe, after you two, in fact, has just said, phonetics with an Irish accent, we're sunk apparently because there are 7 Northern Ireland accents coming up on Teachers Talk Radio at 9 p.m.
Wow.
We're doomed apparently, but we are.
I think I'm going to have to tune in and be it then, because, well, actually, Le Prof's accent's not too far from mine. We're probably very similar, considering we're both South Down residents, about 25 miles apart. But he would probably a testament that we have such a variation of even within small areas of Northern Ireland, that we have such. I mean, I get that with the kids sometimes. They go to Mr. Poland, you've got a really strong accent. I'm like, would you like me to do Belfast? Would you really like me to do Derry? Would you really like me to do
we
Northampton Coast? You know,
we
and,
have
and, and
we
I,
have
I throw
Belfast
them all
teachers in
in.
the school, and when they get together, there's 2 of them. When they get together, it is, and I think I've said this to you before. It's another language. You know that it's kind of English, but then I suppose it's the English's fault for
It's the
trying to,
speed. It's the speed. I
yeah.
mean, I've got a colleague of mine. He's actually Jerry from Derry, and when the two of us get going, and it's literally like it's just like it's like the Chuckle Brothers. We just basically bounce off each other to the point our sense of humor is. And even I'd be whistling the song, and he'd finish the song, and but that's nice. You have that. Again, you get that connection with people in schools, and I have lifelong friends of my colleagues, and I don't think you can ever replace that with replacing it with technology. There's just something about the human to human interaction that can never, I don't think, can ever and be replaced. And the thing is, we're saying to the kids, we had a roadshow tonight about careers, and one of the things I'm constantly saying to the children is, when you're talking about careers of the future, think about what careers are going to be there in the future. You want to be a mechanic, great. But you think you're going to be grease monkeying underneath an engine, pulling an engine apart and putting it back together. No, you need computers for that. You're going to need maths, because the technology is there, where it's telemetry now. And I think a lot of our children are sleepwalking into a potential world where they're not having the skills. And when you look at, and this is the really darker side to it, and this was part of our policy we put together recently to make sure the first political party to do it, is that, AI could be there, and this could be used to completely empty schools of TAs first. because I'm looking at this story, going back to these stories, and some of these are good stories, but there's also that caveat of literally, okay, if I can put the technology in the school, then I could reduce the number of staff budgets. And guess what? Those AI those robots don't need a pension. Those robots don't have sick pay. They don't get maternity or paternity. They don't go on strike when they don't get a pay rise. You look at the trouble that we tend to cause. We're not always the most easy to rule bunch teachers. We're quite willful and we're quite annoying to the is that we are teachers. We're strong-minded, independent people, and we look after children, and we know we're quite proud. And that does mean you've seen recently that we don't always get the respect within society. If somebody's to come around and start saying we could replace bad teachers with a robot, it wouldn't take much to turn some people into will they have 6 weeks holidays? You see where I'm going with this? If we're not careful, we could find ourselves an endangered species. And I would say, first of all, it would be the teaching assistants that will be first, because these robots seem to be used, and I can see some examples here, for assistance in the classroom. And that's what we saw with Warwickshire. That was assistance. There's another one here in America where we can see that this is helping children with learning difficulties. And this all sounds very, very good. I'll just read through it. So a QT system is born of scientists, and they first developed the robot as a tool to assist children with attention deficit disorder. In a gesture, its heads and arms and facial display expressions, it can speak, so it can interact. So, funded by the University of Luxembourg, the pair developed a construct for social robots. So, this idea of social robots was born. And 16 students between the ages of 7 to 12-year-olds with suspected or confirmed diagnosis of learning difficulties, known to have difficulty in reading, participating, were used. 8 had sessions with the QT robot, while other 8 acted as controls. The researchers developed a web application interface for instructors, provided a protocol for the students that included warm-up activities, games, breathing exercises, and the application was loaded onto a tablet, allowing instructors to control the QT robot. So while instructors controlled the robot, the QT acted autonomously when triggered by the instructor. So that then reacted. The robot set goals, and if a student was getting off track, it used strategies like games and jokes and breathing and exercise and physical movement to redirect the student's focus, to keep it on task. Instructors recorded their interactions, including whether the session's educational goals had been achieved. So by the end of your lesson, here, have your goal been achieved? So the AI is doing this. The amount of time the students spent off task with the redirected strategies we used was recorded. Students were able to provide feedback about their experience with the robot. The study showed that the students who took part in the sessions engaged in fewer off-task behaviours and showed greater engagement. The students perceived the robot as friendly, intelligent, enjoyable, and will be willing to engage it in the future. Their friendly teaching assistant robot. The feedback from instructors demonstrated to a large degree that they found the robot's intervention effective and helpful in maintaining the students' focus and engagement. So that's a success. And you could say to yourself, well, we need more of those. But then you're not going to get. You need more of those. How much do they cost? Are they? You see where I'm going with that? It's like that's the job of a teaching assistant, isn't it? But we don't have teaching assistants, so we're going to roll out an AI program which helps the teacher. That will be in your classroom, recording everything going on in your classroom. You see where I'm going with this? Recording everything going on in your classroom. What's to say that it's not recording and that can be played back? Or you've got the situation where that assistant in your classroom is saying, "You teacher talked for far too long, Mr. Poland. My spidey senses are tingling to a point where I want this technology in my classroom, Big Brother watching me and recording me and then playing back to me. You see where I'm suggesting where we're going with that we as teachers could be inviting technology into our classroom, which in itself would be a danger to our autonomy, our privacy, and starts to question. I, I don't know what you guys think about that. It's a success, but I'm looking at it from another point of view, thinking, well, actually, is this something that we want? Is this the future? Is this what we want to be going towards? And if it helps the children, I can understand, but it opens up a Pandora's box for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the difficulty is that I understand your point of view, and you're looking at it, I think, as a kind of a union reps kind of perspective, and you're thinking about kind of keeping jobs as well as everything else, aren't you? But in terms of if you just take that out and just look at sheer progress, you know, I don't look at that to see it being kind of a major, I think the progress outweighs the issues, and as always, if we look after the staff involved, there could be kind of huge benefits going forward. So it's that kind of that kind of opportunity cost there, isn't there, of this, and how kind of trying to manage those benefits as well as kind of being empathetical to the potential consequences going forward. But there's no doubt that this will affect, as you said before, certain roles within schools. But it's whether overall does it kind of support the learner's journey more, I guess, is what we're trying to think about here, is it? But we don't have, as I said before, we don't have that overall umbrella kind of policy or direction to know kind of where we're heading. I think
My
that's
my my niggle, and drilling into it, and I think you know where this is coming from. My niggle is the facial recognition is what's happening in China. The
yeah,
control of the population using the facial recognition to nudge the behavior. It's the
yeah,
subtle hand. Are we going to have children who are going to be nudged? Their behavior is going to be controlled. It's the subtle hand that you won't see that's guiding their behavior towards an outcome, and that really, really sends my liberty and freedom and free. That
okay,
sends
okay,
me a
okay.
little bit. I get why I'm a bit sensitive to that, but
Put it in this perspective then. A, is that already happening? And B, has it always happened, but just not in a kind of technological sense? Has
a
there
human
all?
being. But the thing is, a human being is autonomous. A human being has a sense of independence in the sense of we're altruistically there to help the children. We care about the children. Somebody can program a robot. You take the government ministry, and they could be, oh my word. Last week, would it be found out that the government ministry was spying on prominent academics who were criticizing the government? You were about to put technology into our classroom that could monitor what's going on in your classroom. Is that something that we, again, when you put it that way, is that something people would welcome with open arms, and then realize that within a couple of years down the line they will go, what, who put this technology in here? We've got to be careful. Whatever we embrace has been well thought through, the consequences have been well thought through, and people are on board with it. In other words, we aren't going to be told, I'm sorry, here's this piece of technology, you're going to use this piece of technology, and if you have any problem with that, it's the trust or our organization's corporate policy. By the way, and you're right, I am putting on my defend
Yeah, of
my
course.
colleagues, I am putting on my warning signals, I am being 1984 Orwellian, Brave New World Huxley. I am very, very much always on the lookout for dystopianism and for mission creep, which is what we're seeing is happening, because it's there has been far too much untrustness of our profession. We aren't Ofsted. I mean, you imagine if Ofsted with the data could turn around and go, oh, excuse me, we've just been monitoring your classroom, and your classroom is 17% less efficient than. You see where I'm going, because we've seen so many systems where people have used behavior against teachers to say, excuse me, you're not a very good teacher because you have done X amount of exclusions from your class. Same as data. I'm sorry, your children don't work. You understand where I'm coming for this?
Yeah,
This,
of
this,
course.
this
Yeah,
is this is
yeah,
very, very
yeah,
dangerous for
yeah.
abuse.
No, yeah, of course, yeah, and that's why we need good regulation, don't we? I mean that's the kind of point that I was making at the start, but we
It's
haven't.
taken 4 years for an online safety bill,
Yeah,
so good luck
yeah,
with regulating robots in the classroom.
yeah. It's basically kind of let's put this thing out there, and once it starts running, we'll see how it goes, and that's kind of the way things have gone over the last 5 years, haven't they? And we've talked about another example is like vaping, for example. Let's put there's this product out there, let's everyone go for it, and then we'll try and put some
Close the
regulation.
stable door when the horse is bolted, and fix the
Yeah,
problem that
yeah,
we
but
could have solved in the
that's
first place.
that's just the problem with when you've got, I don't know what the issue is. Short-termism in policymakers, people not having that kind of wider thought. Maybe that thing is just not there anymore. Of how do we do this kind of big cathedral thinking? How do we do these big projects and big thinking? And kind of pull everyone together. I don't know if this is really big now. I'm not sure sometimes whether we've even got the systems in place to actually do that anymore. It doesn't really matter kind of what we're talking about. And I don't think it's a particularly a political party thing. I don't. You
No,
see, it's a
I
kind
think
of
it
it's
transcends. It's society now. It's out there. We can't uninvent it. We've got to roll with it. But I think we need to be mindful that what we're asking, what we're putting into the classroom, I'd rather how much would that system might have cost. A good teaching assistant would actually cost a lot less, and would tell me what a good teaching assistant can do for children. Absolutely amazing. And there is
Yeah,
the problem: we can't recruit teaching assistants. But here is my issue of, I mean, if we're going to start to see things like your Oak academies, and you start to see online learning, you start to do, I get what I'm coming at is, are we being undermined by the technology? Are we being devalued? Are we being slowly phased out? And is it natural? Is it something we cannot fight? The same way as, there's going to be automation in the transport industry. Same way there's going to be automation, and it's Tom's point earlier on, Lucy's point actually, and then Tom what agreed is that, we will definitely see changes in law. We will definitely see changes in other sectors, and maybe we're one of the sectors that might hold out a lot longer, and we'll have to evolve for it. But the very thing that is we would be embracing and using could be the very thing that will eventually replace us.
yeah,
But
yeah. But there's always that danger with everything. We've just got Paul Foz has put a couple of comments on Brent, so I
you
just want to
have,
give.
yeah. Sorry, you see,
So,
Paul's actually doing, I think, which is the assistance end, and I think
yeah,
Paul is right, and I think that's the where we're at the moment. He's got a class. Sorry, yes, he's suggesting he use AI resources to help the paperwork and the bureaucracy, and to sort out that side of the teaching job. Agree, absolutely, completely. At the moment, I find use myself the AI to produce exam questions to help
yeah.
revision. So I
Yeah,
find it useful at the moment.
I've literally just sort of listened to you. I'm just doing some work for tomorrow as well. I just want to get some kind of quick kind of 3 mark questions done. And I've been able to generate like 5 or 6 quickly. That I can quickly go into the classroom tomorrow and use them as a starter. So that's fantastic. There's no doubt about that. I would never have been able to do that in the past. So that's going to have a massive benefit to my children tomorrow morning, isn't it? That their teachers come in with 5 or 6 questions locked and loaded. There'd be no way that I could have generated that previously after coming back off parents' evening anyway.
Is
Hello?
Brent there? Oh, is
I don't know what's
he?
happened there. Sorry, we just went kind of quiet.
Oh, he's gone quiet.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if he's finally run out of steam. Brent, come in, Brent.
He might have just
No,
powered down. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what happens
just
there?
imagine.
No, I'm
That's.
here. Sorry, I just
Oh no,
accidentally
you're
put the
there.
mic off.
Oh,
Oh, thank God
It's
you're
all
all
right. It's
right.
just
I
an
suddenly thought
accident.
you just sort of, yeah, we thought you'd run out of batteries.
No, stuck another charge in. How about this then? Watch this one, and this is my this is my spidey senses going even more now. So, and we're in the United States of America, so you can see where they're going with this. You can probably guess what direction this is going to go. So, a number of U.S. schools are testing AI-equipped security robots designed to roam the campus around the clock looking for unwanted visitors. School safety an ongoing concern for staff and students and parents, with mass shootings and extreme end things to be worried about. So Santa Fe High School, New Mexico, is one of the first to pilot an autonomous robot in the Albuquerque-based First Technologies company. It's a 5 foot, £400 robot. £400 is absolutely massive. That's well, about 30 stone, isn't it? And moves along in wheels and uses a camera at the top of the mast and a 300-degree video for the school securities team. Constantly on the lookout, it uses AI to learn the school various characteristics. Hope it can catch the vapors, including layout patterns of activities. So this is a watchdog AI which gets the school layout, knows how the school works, and can identify individuals. And this is what I'm saying about facial recognition and identifying individuals. And how would it know it's an unwanted visitor? The robot can recognize aggressive or unusual behavior. We'd look at that in the school and move towards the perceived intruder, letting them know that they're being observed by buying time for security to respond. While some have concerns about privacy, the robot doesn't have any facial recognition capabilities yet, and the current pilot program can be upgraded. It is responsible for handling and capturing footage, and therefore decide how to store it. So the school itself will have the footage and records of the footage. A teacher at the school told the reporter that the robot, which he described as a 7-camera dog, could be useful for monitoring isolated parts of the campus that may not receive so much attention from human members of the school security team. And I know that's the United States of America, and they're in a very different place when it comes to their situation with regards to school security. But there you have robots in school patrolling schools And again, this is kind of like you feel like you have 30 seconds to comply. What's that? What's that RoboCop? What are you doing? This is where we're at. We're having, AI 400-pound robots patrolling around schools in America, and we know how things work. That things that happen in America start to make their way over here. And again, I just put that out there. How do we feel about that? Is that again? Some could say it's a positive. It's more security, or are we in that world where we're going to have drones and we're going to have that level of technology again monitoring us or keeping us safe? So it's that aspect of, is it keeping us safe, or is it part of the monitoring, or what is wrong with having your American high school security guard just walking around with a set of keys? I just thought that was interesting to see how AI could be used in school, but are we due for security AI security robots roaming the halls? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? I sensed your vaping to the child. You take it 25 years down the line, hard up schools might employ robots to basically be the disciplinarians. And much like you see in China with the facial recognition thing, it can tell when somebody's been naughty. You can imagine that in the classroom going, "You have smirked behind the teacher's back. I can see a 17% elevation in your pupil dilation. Please refrain from making a smart comment." I mean, you see where I'm going with this? We could have robots controlling our behavior. Lucy.
I think you've just described an entire plot to a new Black Mirror episode. So maybe that's, it does seem like a lot of these, I don't know if you've ever watched it,
Oh,
but
I love Black Mirror. Charlie Brooker.
yeah, well, I mean, last series was a little disappointing, bar a couple, but the earlier episodes, I feel like a lot of them are sort of coming to fruition now. I hope we never need robots patrolling our corridors, and it's one of the reasons I would never teach in the US. I mean, the idea that kind of I'd open my desk drawer and have, oh, blue tack, sweets, gun, no, thank you.
Well, that was actually one of the proposals after one of the school shootings.
It
Was
was, yeah,
if
yeah.
we need
I mean,
to
can
arm the
you
teachers?
imagine that?
Well, do your homework. Why? Well, me and Mr. Desert Eagle 5.0. Come on. I mean,
No, I'm sorry. No, it's one of those things where there is no world that
I
I
know.
inhabit. I know you talked about wanting to get off the rock earlier. That was when I want to kind of check off the rock. Thank you. I'm done.
Well, but you'd have to carry but what I mean, I wouldn't want to even. You think about it, we moved away from a world where we caning children physically to then a world to stop school shootings where you're
That's
asking
a
teachers to
wild
carry a gun.
thought, isn't it? Yeah, that is a
But then a world where you're having to employ robots to patrol school grounds. And again, but the thing is, would people see that as a novelty? Would they accept that? That's my thing. Is would that become the
wild.
norm that we'd have robots patrolling the school grounds? And then you would have
Maybe.
like your head of year would have like the discipline report of the robot has caught 17 kids vaping. The robot has caught this, that. Is this where we're heading towards?
Oh,
Because that
that's.
is what's happening in that is literally what's happening in countries like China, where their facial recognition software is predicting crime. It's
Is
like
it for
Minority Report.
jaywalking? I heard there's one for, so if you're caught, yeah, crossing the road where you shouldn't be, that there's now tech in China. I don't know who told me this or if they were having me on or not, but yeah, apparently.
But could you
So no,
imagine a hypothetical government in the future who likes the headlines? We have sorted out school discipline. We have installed school discipline robots, which have decreased the number of crime in schools by 17%. That's see where I'm going with this. This is open
yeah,
for someone to come
you're going
along.
very dark here. I feel like we're at 4 minutes to 9, that maybe we should before I start to have nightmares, and I
Well,
blame you for that.
maybe the old Brent powered down. We had a dark Brent power up.
Yeah,
I was alter
maybe that's
ego,
what
yeah.
happened. Maybe it really is Black Mirror happening in this very moment in time.
Well,
Maybe I
should
should write this
should we
stuff
say
down
thank
and,
you
and,
to our
and produce
sponsors,
it here.
Spence, as well?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Say thank you to our sponsors
Oh, yes, please.
before we go.
Yes, please. Would you like to, or should I?
Well, I can't access the thing, sorry, so I can't.
Well, I'll do one more positive. I'll end on a positive, which
Yeah,
backs
go
up
on.
what Paul was saying, and I'll bring myself back to the light side of the force. I've gone into the Sith end of things. So, 1 in 3 teachers use AI to help with schoolwork. So, polling by Teacher Tap has found the proportion of teachers who reported using AI tools to help in the work has risen to 35%, according to a recent survey of over 9,000 teachers leaders. An increase from April, which is just 17% reported to doing so. So that is in less than 6 months, doubling of the amount of people starting to use AI to assist in their help in their jobs. 44% of male staff reported using AI compared to 31% of female staff. Younger staff are also more likely to use it, with 2 in 5 teachers in their 20s reported using AI compared to 26% of those aged 50 plus. So reported uses included lesson planning, creating resources, writing reports, responding to parent emails, as well as writing UCAS references and job adverts. So the Department of Education has commissioned a project to explore whether AI could be used for marking and feedback, which actually I saw something great on Dragon's Den about that recently. It was a really good Dragon's Den, if you watched that, where a guy had a quality marking product that he was coming up with. The aim of better understanding and testing for possible uses. Ministers reported intend to publish the findings of the project in spring. So that would be spring in 2 years' time, not spring next year. So that's showing that a number of people using AI, particularly in the classroom, and the number of teachers embracing it is increasing, which backs up what you're suggesting, Adam, that whether I like it or whether I don't, this is going to happen. I suppose what I'm saying is we just got to make sure that we don't, don't let the chicken in the head, don't let the fox in the hen house and open the door to technology that could somehow replace us. So that was my spiel tonight of just making sure that I there's a side to it it does worry me, and I hate when I'm right about these things in the future, but I just don't want to feel that we are embracing a technology that can be used against us, so to speak.
Well, hopefully not, but we are going to have to wrap up in a moment, I'm afraid,
let me
my
just
friend.
do our sponsor and wrap up. So very quickly, I'll do my as fast as possible. So our sponsor is Adapt, teachers rewarding profession that comes with a fair share of challenges. That's where Adapt comes in. They're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern apolitical alternative and expert legal advice. Adapt provides teachers with support staff and casework and
Hang on, sorry, have I pressed time 6?
We're
Did someone
apolitical.
press the double time button?
Yeah, that was.
I can do
on
this.
Brent.
Don't worry. I can be that guy at the end of the advert, goes like, our team supports subscribers individually with integrity, consistency, and confidentiality. But like a unit, but different. They give advice on allegations, disciplinaries, grievances, suspensions, employment contracts, paying conditions, work hours, sick pay, leave, maternity, paternity, and more. They're available from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and respond to within 2 hours. They only use qualified professional caseworkers with expert legal education. You'll find them at adapt.org.uk. And thank you. You will come again. There you
go. In English with gaps, please. No, if you want to hear that sponsorship message, you might need to slow down that part of the podcast to 0.5 time. But Adam, Brent, thank you so much, as always, for a valiant effort and for keeping going for an hour and a half. And Adam, for fighting your way back from a parents' evening. Absolutely solid effort. Right now, we have got La Prof starting over on Podbean. So I think continuing with the Irish Massive, they are kicking off over there. So do go and join them. I did find out what he was talking about and I now can't find it, but I'm sure it'll be very interesting. And just finally, the poll on AI lead, only 9% of people who voted, so it's just shy of 100 at the moment, have got an AI lead at the moment. 72% no, and 19% still don't have a clue what we're talking about. So
the prof is talking about that there's research about children growing up online, so that's actually backing up
the theme.
Yep, there we go.
Fabulous. So he will just be getting started over on Podbean, and you two are back next week, yes?
Back next week, and we're going to do a special next week about, I want to have a look at the recent findings about the white working class boys in particular, what is going on with different groups in British society. Why are Chinese and Asian students doing so well, and why are we seeing such a disconnect with certain communities? So we're going to try and explore that one. I think that's going to be going to need a bit of an input from all different forces. We'll try and get some good guests on that. I know Shanique was interested in coming in that one, because I think that's a big one, isn't it? That's a really
definitely
deep question.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Well, great stuff, and we will hear from you soon.
Good night.
Good night.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.